Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. China warns Philippines against South China Sea miscalculation. Says escalating dispute would bring a resolute response. Israel says will continue fight until Hamas is destroyed. Hamas says no talk of hostage release until the conflict ends. Russia splashes $12 billion to keep their aviation sector afloat. Moscow dips into its reserve funds to keep it in air. China on Thursday warned Philippines that any miscalculation in their escalating dispute in the South China Sea would bring a resolute response and urged dialogue to address serious difficulties between the two neighbors. Beijing and Manila have traded sharp accusations in recent months over a succession of run-ins in the South China Sea, including charges that China rammed a ship earlier this month carrying the Philippine Armed Forces Chief of Staff. China's foreign ministry also said that it hopes the Philippines will work properly with the country to manage the situation in the South China Sea. The comments came after its foreign minister told Philippines to address through dialogue serious difficulties in their relations over the South China Sea.
China's position on maritime disputes with neighboring countries has always been clear and unchanged. We hope that the Philippines will make rational decisions and follow the effective way of getting along with neighbors, and work with China to properly handle and manage the current maritime situation.
Now, Taiwan has accused China of economic coercion after Beijing announced the removal of tariff cuts on 12 chemical imports from the island. The tensions come ahead of Taiwan's presidential and parliamentary elections that will be held early next year. China claims sovereignty over Taiwan. Beijing has accused Taipei of violating a 2010 trade deal by imposing discriminatory prohibitions and restrictions on Chinese exports. Top diplomats of the United States, South Korea and Japan on Wednesday condemned North Korea's recent ballistic missile launches. In a joint statement, the three countries urged Pyongyang to engage in substantive dialogue without any preconditions. Meanwhile, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has said Pyongyang would not hesitate with a nuclear attack if it senses any enemy provocation with nuclear weapons. Kim made the remarks as he met with soldiers under the military's Missile Bureau over its recent launching drill of an intercontinental ballistic missile. Kim said Monday's missile launch demonstrated the military's high mobility and rapid attack capabilities. South Korea and Japan have resumed high-level economic talks for the first time since 2016 in a sign of improving ties amid shared geopolitical concerns. The talks, which first began in 1999, had been stalled since 2016 as relations between the two nations soured over disputes stemming from Japan's occupation of Korea for 45 years. Japan is protesting a ruling by a South Korean court that holds two Japanese companies accountable for forced labor during World War II. It comes as deputy finance ministers from the two countries hold talks on boosting economic cooperation, a meeting that is considered by experts to indicate swiftly warming ties. DD India's Chris Gilbert has more from Tokyo.
This court ruling could develop into a complete spanner in the works for the rapidly warming ties between South Korea and Japan. Over the last 9 months, the two leaders of the two countries have managed to put historical grievances behind them, which had been simmering tensions between South Korea and Japan, particularly over the last few years, and really clear a path forward to work together and with the United States on areas of common interest. But now these historical grievances have come right back to the surface with the Supreme Court ruling. It refers back to rulings by other courts in 2018 in South Korea, which called on Mitsubishi Heavy and Nippon Steel to compensate the victims, survivors and families of those who were subjected to forced labor by those companies and other Japanese institutions at a time when Japan ruled the Korean Peninsula from 1910 to 1945. It focuses on forced or at least free labor without any compensation. Nippon Steel and Mitsubishi Heavy, after rulings in 2018, effectively said that they are not going to compensate survivors or their families, believing that this was already solved in an agreement in 1965. And earlier this year in March, we saw the South Korean government a year into Yoon Suk-yeol's presidency say, look, we are just going to compensate them ourselves. It's going to come from the South Korean coffers. And since then, we have seen the path clear for the warming of ties that have subsequently developed between Japan and South Korea. So now this court ruling throws all that back into question. Japan has protested the ruling. Yoshimasa Hayashi, the new chief cabinet secretary, absolutely blasting it, saying it's totally unacceptable and a clear violation of the Japan-South Korea claims agreement. So again, harking back to previous agreements that have already been made to protest court rulings, but questions remain about what the future holds and if this is going to fray, yet again, ties between the two countries. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo reporting for DD India.
Getting you the latest on Israel-Hamas conflict. Ismail Haniyeh, leader of Hamas, was in Egypt for a second day on Thursday for negotiations, a rare personal intervention which the past has signaled important stages in diplomacy. Islamic Jihad, another militant group, said its leader was also headed there. The talks appear to be the most serious since a week-long ceasefire collapsed at the start of month, but the public positions of the opposing sides are far apart. Israel says it will negotiate only on a temporary pause in fighting to free hostages. Hamas says it is interested only in negotiations that will lead to a permanent end to fighting. Hamas said in a statement that Palestinian factions had taken a united position that there should be no talk about prisoners or exchange deals except after a full cessation of aggression. The Israeli army has released a video showing weapons in a school complex in Gaza. The IDF said its soldiers enabled the evacuation of civilian population from the school complex. The IDF also added its fighter jets struck a compound in Khan Yunis, killing Hamas terrorists living there. As Israeli troops continue their ground operations in Gaza, the army has discovered a network of tunnels running deep beneath central Gaza. As per the military, the tunnels were found by soldiers registered under the name of a senior Hamas leader. Accessed by spiral staircases and an elevator up to 20 meters below the ground, the tunnels were facilitated with electricity, plumbing, surveillance cameras, and heavy blast doors.
As the Israeli army was operating in the area of Hamas leaders in the heart of Gaza City, where the political and military leadership of Hamas is situated, we uncovered an area that served as a base for terror that were located in civilian buildings. With the operation of ground forces and based on intelligence we received under the area of leadership, we uncovered a branch network of strategic underground bases.
Well, there's been another delay in Security Council vote for a humanitarian pause in Gaza. This latest delay comes at the request of the United States, which says it needs more time to consult. DD India's Jody Jacobs reports from the United Nations in New York.
It's been delay after delay. The initial vote on this current legally binding Security Council resolution was first scheduled for Monday, postponed to Tuesday, delayed to Wednesday, and now once again rescheduled. On Wednesday, the Council held close consultations to continue the negotiations, and these were followed by the announcement of yet another postponement to Thursday. Diplomats here in New York say there's growing frustration with the United States' repeated requests for delays. A major sticking point in this new text is the question of whether the United Nations should take over from Israel to inspect humanitarian shipments going into Gaza, something which the organization ordinarily does in other countries. Israel, we are told, wants the United States to reject this, as it would effectively leave it with no role in screening the shipments. But the UAE's ambassador to the UN, Lana Nasabeh, whose country tabled the resolution, told reporters on Wednesday they've been working long hours and believes giving it another go for additional diplomacy could yield positive results. She says she remains optimistic an agreement will be reached. Earlier this month, the US vetoed a similar Security Council resolution backed by almost all other council members. And while the intense political negotiations continue, the head of the UN's Children's Fund, UNICEF, has warned on Wednesday that there's barely a drop of safe water to drink in Gaza. Jody Jacobs at the United Nations, reporting for DD India.
Germany will provide an additional funding of $96.89 million to Ukraine to help strengthen their energy system as Russia continues to target Ukrainian infrastructure. The German Ministry for Economy is going to contribute $59.4 million via the state-owned bank, and the Foreign Ministry is going to contribute $37.4 million to the Ukraine Energy Support Fund. Russia has handed out over $12 billion in state subsidies and loans to prevent its civil aviation sector from collapsing due to Western sanctions. Major Western plane makers Airbus and Boeing halted supplies and maintenance support to Russian airlines in March 2022. To support the sector, Russia had to dip into its reserve funds. Russian airlines currently operate 991 planes, partly by importing spare parts via third countries without the manufacturer's permission. DD India's Dasha Chernyshova reports from Moscow.
According to the estimates of the Western media, Russia has spent over $12 billion in state subsidies and loans to keep its aviation sector afloat over the past 2 years. Since the start of Russia's so-called special military operation in Ukraine, aviation sector has faced severe sanctions targeting major Russian airlines and their executives. Boeing and Airbus suspended the delivery of spare parts to Russia and halted maintenance and support. So as in many other areas, Russia had to develop its aviation industry alone with domestically sourced parts. Anna Panina, director of the Aviation Industry Department at the Ministry of Industry and Trade, said earlier this year that between 2024 and 2026, Russia will spend around $1.2 billion on aircraft manufacturing and financial assistance for airlines. She said the goal is to increase the share of aircraft and helicopters produced in Russia in the fleet of the largest carriers by 2030. Earlier this year, Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin announced new solutions to support the domestic aircraft industry, including easing the rules of granting subsidies from the federal budget. Dasha Chernyshova, reporting in Moscow for DD India.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has called German leaders a thieving lot after being asked at a news conference in Tunis about a German proposal to confiscate frozen Russian assets. Prosecutors in Germany said they had requested the confiscation of more than 720 million euros from the Frankfurt bank account of a Russian financial institution. Russia on Thursday promised to respond in kind should the European Union go ahead with a plan to ring-fence profits generated from Russia's frozen assets in the EU and hand them to Ukraine. Ukraine's air defense shot down 34 out of 35 Russian drones launched in a major overnight attack on 12 Ukrainian regions. Russia launched Iranian-made Shahed drones in several waves, and the air alerts in the center, southeast and north Ukrainian regions lasted 4 hours. There were no immediate reports of major damage or any casualties. The European Union Council has said it has approved a plan to give electric vehicle makers in the EU and Britain until the end of 2026 to comply with local content rules to delay the imposition of tariffs on EVs traded with the UK. It adopted a decision which will allow the EU to agree with the UK on the extension of the current rules of origin for electric vehicles and batteries until 31st of December 2026. This will prevent the entry into force of more stringent rules from January 1, 2024 and the application of 10% tariff on goods traded between the EU and the UK, which do not meet those requirements. Well, let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. First meeting of Nepal-Sri Lanka Joint Commission was held in Nepal's capital Kathmandu on Thursday. It was co-chaired by Nepal Foreign Minister MP South and his Sri Lankan counterpart Ali Sabri, and many other high officials were present from both sides of delegations. A MOU on cooperation in the field of science and technology and innovation was also signed. K-pop star Kwon Ji-young, popularly known as G-Dragon, said on Thursday he would launch an anti-drug foundation to help people after he was recently cleared of allegations of illegal drug use. The police dropped the charges against him after finding no testimonies to support the allegations. Director couple Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach reportedly tied the knot in New York City Hall on Tuesday. The Oscar-nominated directors started dating in 2011 and got engaged in 2020. Gerwig has had a record-breaking year with the success of Barbie, which she directed and co-wrote with Baumbach. Citizens in Paris are hoping to relieve the stress of a tumultuous 2023 with an unusual yoga class. The yoga classes have added 10 adorable golden retriever puppies to their personnel. Animal lovers can attend the sessions, which include 40 minutes of interacting with the fluffy animals and 20 minutes of yoga. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. India sends relief supplies to Papua New Guinea on a special charter flight. We tell you the latest updates from the last day of the winter session of Indian Parliament. The largest ever outreach initiative of Government of India, the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, is continuing in various parts of the country. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Argentina's new libertarian president, Javier Milei, has signed an economic reform decree lifting export limits and easing regulations to address the country's severe economic crisis. Milei, who has been in office for less than 2 weeks, has pledged to curb inflation but has warned that economic shock treatment is the only solution. Latin America's third biggest economy is struggling after decades of debt and financial mismanagement, with annual inflation at 140%. Thousands in Buenos Aires have been protesting against the government's economic shock measures in the first real test for new libertarian president Javier Milei. Amid police presence, the protesters, led by groups that represent the unemployed, made their way to the main Plaza de Mayo Square, a historic meeting point in front of the presidential palace, to demand greater financial support for the poor. Venezuela has freed 10 U.S. citizens as part of a prisoner swap with the United States. It's the largest ever prisoner swap between the two governments. DD India correspondent Mary Trini Mena has more details.
The White House confirmed the release of 10 U.S. citizens, 6 of them designated as wrongfully detained by the State Department. The swap took place in a third country. Before leaving Venezuela, all of the prisoners went through a medical examination. Among the Americans released, 2 former members of the U.S. Special Forces, Aaron Berry and Luke Denman, who were sentenced to 20 years in jail after participating in a failed attempt to overthrow President Nicolás Maduro. This swap comes after the U.S. eased oil sanctions on Venezuela in October. It's the result of many months of secret talks between Venezuelan and U.S. officials. The White House says this is a positive step forward. The current negotiations aim to secure competitive and democratic presidential elections in Venezuela in 2024. Returning to Venezuela is Colombian businessman Alex Saab, who was arrested in 2020 and accused of money laundering. Saab was facing criminal prosecution in a Florida court. Caracas celebrated the return of Saab to Venezuelan soil, saying he was kidnapped by the U.S. On Wednesday, he was welcomed by President Maduro at Venezuela's presidential palace. The Venezuelan government also freed about 24 individuals, some of them linked to the opposition. In Caracas, Maritrini Mena reporting for DD India.
Back home, speaking on the death penalty to 8 former Indian Navy personnel in Qatar, the Indian Ministry of External Affairs in its weekly media briefing said that the case is in Qatar's Court of Appeal.
This case is now in the Court of Appeal, as it's called. And there have been 3 hearings in the Qatar Court of Appeal, on November 23rd, November 30th, and December 7th. Meanwhile, our ambassador in Doha got consular access, mentioned that last time we met, to meet all the 8 men on December 3rd.
As Yemen's Houthi rebels step up attacks on vessels in the Red Sea, increase in oil and natural gas prices has become a major concern. Addressing concerns over any disruption in commercial shipping, the MEA said that India is monitoring the developments closely.
India has always, of course, we have a vested interest and have been supportive of the free movement of commercial shipping. So that is something that we are interested in. We are, of course, monitoring the developments there. Insofar as I think there was, we've also, as you know, part of efforts globally to, or international efforts to ensure free shipping, whether it be piracy or otherwise.
Pursuant to the $1 million relief assistance announced for the Pacific country, India sends relief supplies to Papua New Guinea on a special charter flight. The aid includes 6 tons of medical necessities such as essential medicines, surgical items, sanitary pads, rapid antigen and pregnancy test kits, mosquito repellents and baby food. Additionally, 11 tons of disaster relief materials like tents, sleeping mats, bags, sanitary utilities, hygiene kits, ready-to-eat meals, and water storage utilities were included. Lower House of the Indian Parliament, or Lok Sabha, adjourned sine die on Thursday. On the last day of the winter session, India's Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Singh Thakur moved the Press and Registration of Periodicals Bills 2023 for consideration and passing. The bill was passed in lower house through voice vote. Replying to the discussion on the bill, the minister said the new law will take us out of the mindset of slavery.
वर्षों में पुराने संसद भवन हो या नया संसद भवन, इनमें गुलामी की मानसिकता से बाहर निकलकर नए भारत के लिए नए कानून बनाने का जो शानदार काम हुआ है, सबसे पहले तो मैं प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी को उसके लिए धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं और आभार प्रकट करना चाहता हूं सभी माननीय सांसदों का। उसी दिशा में आज मैं भी आप सबके सामने प्रेस एंड रजिस्ट्रेशन ऑफ पीरियोडिकल्स बिल 2023 को लेकर आया हूं। ये बिल भी गुलामी की मानसिकता से बाहर निकलकर नए भारत के लिए एक नया कानून लाने का कार्य हमने किया है।
Earlier, the lower house passed the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners' appointment, conditions of service and term of office bill 2023. In the upper house of the Indian Parliament, India's Home Minister Amit Shah moved the 3 revised criminal laws for consideration and passing. These bills, the Bharatiya Nyaya Second Sanhita 2023, the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Second Sanhita 2023, and the Bharatiya Sakshya Second Bill 2023 were passed by Lok Sabha on December 20th, 2023. The 3 bills replaced the Indian Penal Code of 1860, Code of Criminal Procedure of 1973, and Indian Evidence Act of 1872. Meanwhile, the upper house passed the telecommunications bill that seeks to amend and consolidate the laws relating to the development, expansion and operation of telecommunication services and telecommunication networks, and the assignment of spectrum. It was passed by a lower house on Wednesday.
To withdraw the bill, those in favor will please say aye.
The Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra is being undertaken across the country with the aim to attain saturation of flagship schemes of the government through ensuring that the benefits of these schemes reach all targeted beneficiaries in a time-bound manner. In Indian state of Chhattisgarh, a camp was organized near Apu Garden under TP Nagar zone of Municipal Corporation in Korba district. The camp helped people of the area to know about welfare schemes of the central government. The beneficiaries who came to apply for the welfare schemes of the central government, including Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana and Ujjwala Yojana, shared their success stories as well. In an ongoing Kashi Tamil Sangamam, the third batch of the Tamil delegation had arrived at Banaras station in the northern Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. The second phase of the Kashi Tamil Sangamam will continue till 30th of December 2023. The delegation also visited the Vishwanath temple. Expressing their excitement, they shared their experience with DD India. Let's listen.
This is the first time I had this temple visit. So this is I am very much proud for this moment. And one more thing, very thanks to Modi ji. This type of organizing things, this is very important thing. Though those who are all interested in the Shiva temple, they are very much happy to attending this function.
We had a very good train journey, and bus facilities also were arranged, and we have given a nice darshan in Kashi Vishwanath temple. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya.
Kashi Tamil Sangamam is a celebration. It's an initiative by Government of India. Like, it gives a unity from Kanyakumari to Kashmir. And it's a festival for us. We are so happy. For the first time we are visiting Varanasi. I would like to thank our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi ji, and the UP Chief Minister, Mr. Yoginath ji also, because it's a great opportunity for all of us.
Updates from Sports World. India faces South Africa in the ODI series, and it's a decider at the Boland Park Stadium. South Africa captain Aiden Markram won the toss and elected to field. India got off to a blazing start as new pair of openers Rajat Patidar and Sai Sudarshan added 34 runs in less than 5 overs. But South African bowlers stuck back and dismissed both the openers below 50 runs. Indian captain KL Rahul and Sanju Samson guided the team to over 100 runs before Rahul was snapped by Wian Mulder. In the crucial match, Proteas retained the same side that played in the last match. However, India made 2 changes in the playing 11. Spinner Washington Sundar replaced Kuldeep Yadav, while Rajat Patidar has made his ODI debut. The 3-match series is levelled at 1-1. All right, and that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.